Welcome back on this Wednesday. As we continue to look at the book of Exodus, we are looking at chapter 23. Chapter 23 continues with the guiding principles, as you could look at it. Not the 10 commandments, but things that are often connected to those commandments for the people of Israel so that they can know the word of the Lord, his desire for them as a nation, and how they are to live. Remember, they had no laws coming out. The Egyptians were ruling over them. And now that they were free, they needed the civil law. And this is a lot of is being given here. Often they are connected back to the 10 Commandments, as we see in our reading for today. And as we look at this, a reminder, I'm not going to do all of it. Read through the other parts and see how they might be able to be connected to the 10 Commandments or to another part of God's Word. Let's continue with the first verse of Exodus chapter 23. You shall not spread a false report. You shall not join hands with a wicked man to be a malicious witness. You shall not fall in with the many to do evil, nor shall you bear witness in a lawsuit siding with the many as to pervert justice. Nor should you be partial to a poor man in his lawsuit. The 8th commandment is kind of expanded here in a way. It helps understand the whole thing about bearing false witness. In this passage, the important part that I see here is when it says, you shall not fall in with a many to do evil. As my dad said, and I'm sure many of your parents said as well, just because others are doing it doesn't mean that it is okay. Don't fall in with many to do evil. And do not bear witness in a lawsuit siding with the many so as to pervert justice. In other words, the more people saying that this happened, it must have happened, and then justice really isn't being done. On the other hand, he also says, nor shall you be partial to a poor man in a lawsuit. So if a poor man is suing someone who has a lot of money, you shouldn't give him a judgment just because he's poor and the other has a lot of money. Act justly as God desires. That's the whole part of the not bearing false witness, I should say. Verse 9, you shall not oppress a sojourner. You know the heart of a sojourner, for you were sojourners in the land of Egypt. Now, this was also part of chapter 22. I wanted to talk about it there, but we were running out of time, so I skipped over it. A sojourner is a visitor, an alien, someone not from around here, if you know what I mean. Just kind of, it could be someone visiting. It could be someone who's just moved into the area. It could be new neighbors that we have from around the world. And we are not to oppress them. We are to treat them with justice. God says in this part, especially for the Israelites, because they were once sojourners in Egypt, and so they are to treat them with respect. Do not oppress them. For 6 years you shall sow your land and gather its yield, but the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field may eat. You shall do likewise with your vineyard and with your olive orchard. 6 days you shall do your work, but on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and your donkey may have rest, and the son of your servant woman, and the alien may be refreshed. Both of these sections that we've read so far are dealing with the Sabbath, the idea of a Sabbath rest. Rest for the land from being overused, and in the meanwhile providing for the poor. And also rest for, in those days, your ox or your donkey, but also the servants who are working. Everybody needs rest. 7 days of work, the body will break down. The mind will start having issues. God created us to need rest. Verse 14. 3 times in a year you shall keep a feast for me. You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. As I commanded you, you shall eat unleavened bread for 7 days at the appointed time of the month of Abib. For in it you came out of Egypt. None shall appear before me empty-handed. You shall keep the feast of harvest, the first fruits of your labors, of which you sow in the fields. You shall keep the feast of the ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in from the field the fruit of the labor. 3 times in a year shall all your males appear before the Lord. There are 3 feasts that are known as pilgrimage feasts: the Feast of Unleavened Bread, also known as Passover; the Feast of Harvest, also known as Pentecost in the New Testament at other times; the Feast of Weeks, it's also called. And the final one is the Feast of Ingathering, also known as the Feast of Booths. These were all different feasts that Jesus celebrated and made his pilgrimage from Galilee to Jerusalem to worship in the temple. As it says, all your males should appear before the Lord. The first one, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, a reminder that they came out of Egypt. The Feast of the Harvest is the early harvest. The Feast of the Ingathering is at the end of the year, again to show thanksgiving to the Lord for what he has done for them. Let's move forward with verse 20. Behold, I send an angel before you to guard you on the way and to bring you to the place that I have prepared. Pay careful attention to him and obey his voice. Do not rebel against him, for he will not pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. Wow, this is a loaded passage right here. One of those that you might skip over without thinking about it much. But I will send an angel before you to guard you on the way and to bring you into the place that I have commanded you, that I have given to you. All of these things, this angel that will lead the way, that the Lord's name is in him. He speaks for the Lord's authority. And in a way, this is very reminiscent of the angel of Yahweh, the angel of the Lord of the Old Testament, which in many times is shown to be Jesus Christ before he was came into the flesh of the Virgin Mary. This is one of those times where often that people say that Jesus is mentioned in the Old Testament, in this angel that would go before them, and the angel that would appear in the flesh in that place hundreds of years later in the person of Jesus Christ. Tomorrow, we are going to hit a little bit more of this, and we're going to start transitioning in a little bit more into the tabernacle through the rest of the week as well, and what God desired for that. And we'll talk a little bit about those, what they are, and why they were important. We'll see you then. God bless.